Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. I'm your host, Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie every week and talk about it just like a book club. On today's show, we are covering the classic courtroom drama, 12 Angry Men. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1957, 12 Angry Men was directed by Sidney Lumet and stars Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, and Martin Balsam. The jury in a New York City murder trial is frustrated by a single member whose skeptical caution forces them to more carefully consider the evidence before jumping to a hasty verdict. It is currently number 5 on IMDb's top 250 and has a 4.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd and is ranked number 3 on its top 250. It was nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. We will be discussing plot points, twists, and story elements throughout the entire show. So if you haven't seen the film yet, make sure that you watch the film. You can pause it. You won't offend us. Come on back, and then we can discuss it here together. Stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what movie we'll be covering next week so you can be ahead of the curve on it. All right, so Kevin, this is a pretty heavy hitter when it comes to film buffs and film circles. Was this your first time seeing the movie, or had you seen it before?
Nope, this was my first time seeing it. I have heard of it before, but I've never really dove into these later movies that I see on the top 250. So I'm really anxious about actually getting into them now because a lot of them have been pretty up there.
It's like they're high on the list for a reason, right?
It's like they make the list for a reason.
I had seen this film a couple of different times. I had seen it during a high school film course. I had seen it during a college film course, and hadn't really seen it since then. So I gave it a rewatch recently, and then I was like, you know what? This might be a good thing to talk about on the show. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. If you watch our live stream, you know I kind of teased how I feel about this movie last week, or this week, excuse me. But this movie is fantastic. What did you have to think about it?
I mean, I was going into it. Sometimes I don't like movies that take place in just one place the entire movie, just because it might get a little boring and stuff. But with these older movies, the dialogue is what makes you engaged into this movie. So when they first get back then, they're like, oh, he's guilty. And one of them says he's not guilty. And then he has to explain himself. It's the way he explains himself and actually gets people on board with what he thinks is actually going on is really, really, it's mesmerizing.
It literally captures your attention from the first time they take a vote and he says no. And it literally just it's weird, like you're saying, because it is all dialogue pretty much. There's no action. I mean, there's a couple moments where it's very tense, but it's not like, there's no fighting, there's no anything like that. So it really holds your attention superbly well, just through dialogue and through performance. Which the fact that this movie wasn't nominated for any performance Oscars is a bit of a letdown. But also the fact that it didn't win anything is a letdown as well. But it really does hold your attention, and that is probably one of the strongest parts of this movie among many different things from the beginning. And I think it's also really commendable that the main character, who we never know their names, they just have juror numbers, but the main dissenter, played by Henry Fonda, isn't saying he's not guilty because he doesn't think he's guilty. He's saying it because he's like, this is a young guy that we're just immediately gonna throw to execution.
Yeah, and he doesn't get the time of day to explain himself. He's everything's put out there on the table for him to be guilty, but he wanted to look at it as in, what if he was not guilty? Can we put something out on the table that shows him that he really didn't do this? And he puts them. I was thinking in my head throughout this whole entire movie too, was how is he going to convince 12 other people, or no 11 other
11
people,
people. Yeah.
11 other people that this guy is not guilty? But he brings the facts, and he brings other people's facts into it as well, which everybody in the jury has a personality
Mhm.
that is it's a personality of today's time as well. You had the angry one, the nerdy one, the older gentleman, and stuff like that. So they all
Yeah.
play a really big role in this, and this movie could be, I don't know, done today, but it could be like presented at a film class or something like that today, and still have a great impact.
This is still shown in film courses to this day, and I can guarantee if I ever teach a film course, it's going to be mandatory viewing, because
Mhm,
it is so indicative. It ages very well,
mhm,
considering the kind of mindsets that people have. And I want to touch on what you said earlier, that everyone is different. No one feels the same.
mhm,
Everyone has a personality trait, a quirk, like a character trait, some sort of quirk that makes them legitimately enthralling to watch and legitimately interesting to sit there and just watch, take in all the information. Obviously,
mhm,
you have, I believe, juror number one is the one that is the last to, uh, you know, kind of come around,
mhm,
and his reasoning for not getting into it is because obviously the kid reminds him of his son and
mhm,
the relationship he had with his son. The
mhm,
guy next to him is kind of more matter of fact and just like, oh no, you got to believe what the witness said. And everyone has their reasoning, and every character stands out. I mean, there are a couple here and there that I don't necessarily remember as much as the main ones, but that's not to say that they don't do a good job. It's just that I feel like what you really get is that every character has its time to shine,
mhm,
and once they're done shining, they take a back seat. And
mhm,
so it's not that you forget them; it's just that your attention shifts, like Henry Fonda's does in, like, okay, like it's not. It's also like he's not strategically trying to make them say that he's not guilty.
mhm.
He's just but it almost feels strategic, like he singles out the problem people, because some people just turn and listen to what he has to say and make their mind up. So,
Mhm.
and let's
Well,
just be real, you're gonna want Henry Fonda on your jury
oh
if you
yeah.
ever have to go to court. Like,
Mhm.
I mean,
It was
please.
the way they went about it too was interesting. When everybody said he was guilty and James Fonda said he wasn't guilty, the they didn't want him to explain why he's not why the persecutor is not guilty. They're like, okay, let us explain why he is guilty, which was, they could have done it the other way and it would have been a really fast movie. But doing it this way, it was like, okay, here's how to break it down. And then when we went to James Fonda, he's like, okay, how can I break this down to make sure that he isn't guilty? And
Yeah,
he's,
and it's also smart because that way you can pinpoint, okay, these are
mhm,
the weaker links, these are the ones who are going to transition quicker, right? Because you get, like, like the nerdy guy, right? He's kind of just tagging along with everything. The older gentleman that sits next to Henry Fonda kind of takes his side very early on. Like, you notice who the ones that are going to take the longest to convince and the ones who are not going to take the longest.
mhm,
And I do really want to appreciate the there's a couple of gentlemen in there that have the same exact sentiment that I would have in jury duty, which is, whatever, just get me out of here as soon as possible.
mhm, mhm.
Like, I'm sorry that your life is on the line for committing a crime, but I've got things to do. So,
Yeah.
that's
And
I have not had the pleasure of having jury duty actually yet. So I can't say for sure, but I would definitely want to get out of there as soon as possible. So I feel them for sure.
mhm. And I like how he wasn't number one. He was
Yes.
number 12 in the list, which makes it even better. Was he 12
I don't believe he was number 12. Let me double check. I think he's somewhere in the middle.
in the
I
middle?
want to say he's like 7 or 8. Yeah, he's
Oh,
juror
okay.
number 8.
Okay. So at the back of the line, though, because he could have been at number one and he could have been our main character.
Yeah.
But no one feels like a main character in this.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he's talking a lot and yes, he's on camera a lot, but everybody gets, like you say, someone steps up into the camera and then they go back into the shadows and then they get picked up again when they're finding out spoiler, that he's not guilty, pretty much. So
Yeah, and like again, like you said, no one really is the main character. I mean, Henry Fonda gets top billing because he's the biggest star. He's also the producer of the film, right? But then he's also the one that has the most lines, and he's the one that's doing the most work to try and turn the verdict around. And so I think that's why he's the pseudo main character. But again, like you're saying, making him juror number 12 or juror number 1 would have just been too obvious. And having him in the middle, I think, is very smart.
Yeah, it is. And then everybody, and I liked how the details he went into, because again, I haven't been in a jury yet either. So I don't know what goes on in the back of that or anything like that. And especially for a big murder case like that, when I know you'd probably get in a lot of trouble, which he didn't in this movie, where he buys the same exact switch knife and then puts it on the table. But that just shows that he thinks that this guy is proof that he is not guilty.
Yeah. And it's also nice because they really touch upon topics that are ahead of their time. Some could say, but it's also indicative of the time period changing, right? They address the fact, like, it doesn't even come up till probably maybe 75% of the way through the movie that the defendant is Latin American. I think it's Puerto Rican. And I feel like a movie, if it was made nowadays, would make a big deal out of that in the beginning of the film.
Oh yeah.
And have that be a permeating thing. Whereas this smartly does make it a big issue, but puts it towards the end, and only brings it up when that particular juror, who I think is like juror number 2 or 3, really just lets it out. And the brilliance of how they handle him, like specifically, I'm talking about the other jurors, just like, like just completely ignoring him is brilliant. And for 1957, that's pretty ahead of its time.
Yeah. Well, and then even having a diagram of where the woman's house or apartment is to walk pace around the what 45 and stuff, and him actually doing it and seeing, oh well, he or she had a bad limp, he wouldn't get out of bed real fast, stuff like that. And during when he's talking like that, I'm like, yeah, he's not guilty. Like halfway through the movie, I'm like, okay, he's not guilty, but how is he going to prove it to how many other jurors that are there?
Yeah, it's brilliant. And like, and the idea, the what's the word I'm thinking of, the plot device of not bringing us into the courtroom. We only see the deliberation, so we are coming in completely like idealists. We don't know what happened. We just have to listen to what they have to say and come to a conclusion as well. It's brilliant. And the only thing you see that's not in the deliberation room is like the bathroom, and then like there's like the 30-second, maybe a minute at the end of the movie where they're walking out of the courthouse, and that shot is great too, when they're all going their own separate directions and really not talking to each other. There's a lot of different ways you could interpret that, but
and then how he hands the man his jacket, the juror his jacket, saying like, it's okay, like, we know he kind of fell upon it, like, oh, he's had trouble with his son or something went wrong with his son, but just we got to do this though, like pick him back up.
Yeah. And kind of going for the common decency of your fellow man, right? Like, yeah, they're on opposite sides, and in many ways you could say they're at battle, like, right? It's a war over this defendant, right? And someone obviously has to lose that war, but you still care about that person at the end. It's like, hey, here's your jacket, like, no hard feelings. It's just like, it kind of feels wrong to send someone to the chair or to be executed. So I think it's absolutely brilliant.
So I also wanted to talk about how he sees the little things in the jurors, not even the witnesses, how when the guy takes off his glasses and he rubs his nose and he realizes, hey, why are you rubbing your nose like that? First of all, I thought he was on like drugs, like cocaine, And I was like, oh wait, no, he has glasses on. Never mind. But then he goes, well, and then another juror, not the main juror, would say, wait, I saw those on that witness too. So she must wear glasses and stuff. So the little details make this movie so good.
Yeah, the little things, like the moment, like you already brought it up, the moment with the switchblade is such a mic drop moment. It's just like first time viewers will totally just get to experience that, and it's wonderful, right? Like, you don't know that's coming, it just goes boom, and like the 2023 part of me is just like, how the hell did he get that past security? Because that would not happen today.
Nope.
I don't even think they would. Again, I haven't been on a jury before, so I don't know if they'd actually bring in the knife and let you touch it.
Like, I don't think so. No, not at all.
It's super weird to me, but yeah, like just the little things, the things that you notice, and not even that the juror notices it, but like the little things just that Sidney Lumet, the director, chooses to show us, right? Like the fan not working for the first half of the movie because the heat is on, and all the flames are directed at Henry Fonda, and about halfway through, when he's convinced half the people, the fan is able to turn on again.
Well, so and it starts raining as well, right?
Yes,
outside.
Yeah, little details that like you said, they just make the movie so much more interesting, especially if you watch it again, kind of noticing everything and kind of picking up on all the little hints and details. Really makes the viewing special.
And then when they're testing out the knife, and it's like, I'm gonna kill you, like that whole sequence is the I'm gonna kill you quote. It's like, he actually does he really mean it and stuff like that? And then the angry, I'm gonna call him the angry juror,
the father,
he goes, yeah, the father is like, I'm gonna kill you, and he goes, do you really mean it? And then just kind of like walks away, and it's like, oh, like he's got a point.
It's cold. So I love it.
It's so good.
Again, really can't hype up the dialogue enough in this movie. It is so well written, and also, like, how long is this movie again? It's 97 minutes. This movie just goes by like a dream. It
doesn't feel like it. No, not at all.
No, it feels like that, like a really well-paced episode of, like a good TV show. But it again paced beautifully, acted beautifully. It's just fantastic.
Well, Nadia asked me. I was watching it during the day, like last week, and I turned my tablet off, and she goes, well, aren't you going to finish the movie? And I go, no, it's already done. Like, it was that fast. It was that good. You're so enthralled in it that you're like, it's over. Like, and you kind of leaves you wanting a little bit more. So
yeah, a modern version of this would be like 2 hours and 20 minutes maybe.
Oh yeah.
It would really go into, like, there'd be flashbacks, there'd be courtroom, clips. It would not be the same. And this is kind of one of those movies I don't think you should remake it, because I think that you don't need to. No. I think it's still relevant. It's still superb all this time later, and again, you could watch this in 100 years and I'm sure it would still be relevant. So,
and I don't think it needs, like, I like it in black and white. It doesn't need color. Like, it doesn't, because it's supposed to be a black and white situation, saying that the white part of it is the not guilty and the black part of it is guilty. Well, how can we transfer, okay, I'm not going to say it, but how do you transfer the guilty to the not guilty side of black and white, which is nice. So, and I don't know, like, old school movies have like a crisper tone to it too, like when they talk or when they walk around the room and stuff. I don't know, that just is an ear orgasm to me.
Yeah. And actually I was just looking at it. Apparently there was a remake in 1997. What? Yeah, with a pretty interesting cast of people like George C. Scott and James Gandolfini, and directed by William Friedkin, who directed, who recently just passed away, but directed The Exorcist and French Connection. So interested to check that out. It doesn't nearly have as high a reviews, but
I wonder why.
definitely
But
sounds like it would be interesting. It's longer though. It's 20 minutes longer, so I don't know. Maybe we'll have to watch that a little bit later. But yeah, I don't think this should have been touched. I think it's completely
no,
fine. As it
I
is.
don't think you touch this. Like some movies, like the Charlie Chaplin movies, you don't touch those. Like they're timeless. And then, like you said, like if you were in a classroom or you were teaching a class about film, this is a perfect one just to be like, hey, it's an hour and 30-minute films, but I want you to come back on an essay of like 3 pages of what you saw that maybe other people didn't, or like symbolisms and stuff like that in the movie.
All right, Kevin, it's very clear that we both really enjoyed this movie. So, what was your final score for 12 Angry Men?
I think this is a first on the Movie Club channel. This is 100 out of 100, a 5 out of 5 stars. Really got me into the movie, never let me go, and then dropped me off in a place where I loved. So
Hey, he was taking an Uber to Disneyland is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like an Uber Black, you know?
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's actually, and again, another first on the show, and a second. I also gave it a 100 out of 100 and 5 stars. I think this is one of the few films that I can say is objectively perfect. From beginning to end, perfectly paced, perfectly acted, perfectly written. It's just beautiful. So yeah, first 100 for me, first 100 for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun, and we also matched same second. That's 2 weeks in a row. We've had the same exact score. We'll see if it carries through to next week. So the question now falls to you: what did you think of 12 Angry Men? We'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. But just remember to be respectful of one another, because art's subjective. Hey, we all like different things, but respect each other. Next week we'll be covering the animated fantasy classic Princess Mononoke. So make sure you watch the film before we jump in next week, so you're not spoiled. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on Real Watchers on YouTube and on every social media platform out there. And we also have our live streams every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. We would love to have you join us there. And until next time, make sure you keep your eyes on the screen.